Mama's in Control, episode 291. Okay, ladies, today I have a really juicy topic for you. You are so going to resonate with this. I've been thinking about this topic for a really, really long time, and I have to give a huge shout out to one of my favorite humans, Morgan. You know who you are. You've inspired to today's topic. And you've inspired to today's topic, guys? I don't know what my issue is, but you know what I'm all about here is progress, not perfection, and being real, raw, and honest, because I think we need a little more of that in the world, especially when it comes to being a mother and a woman. It's very easy to look outside of ourselves and compare our weaknesses or imperfections to what other people are accomplishing in the world. And this was so random, or this is so random. But I remember one time Will Smith, I was watching an interview with Will Smith, and he said, stop comparing your beginning to my chapter 25, which meant I started exactly where you are. So keep going. And too often we're looking at everybody ahead of us thinking, I'm not good enough. Why won't I get there? Right? And I look back on my journey, and now that I'm, gaining traction in my business and my platform and things like that, guys, I literally started this with my iPhone and Googling and watching a YouTube video on how to create a podcast with no expectation at all, but to try to heal myself and tell my story, because I thought I was going crazy. I thought I was alone, and I didn't understand what was wrong with me because I was seeking professional help, and the feedback that I was receiving is, this is what it is, right? Like, you are clinically depressed. Here's some medication. Go try this. Go do that. Maybe this will work. Maybe that will work. But I needed something more. So as I continued to start sharing my story about my struggles and challenges in parenting and motherhood, having my professional background in social work, I'm like, okay, there's an issue here. So just learning more about and seeing results in my life by implementing, right? The A word again, I talk about it all the time, action, 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 by implementing the actions in my life and seeing the results that were coming from digging deep and doing the uncomfortable work and seeing the momentum that happens. So today I want to talk about emotional overperforming. This is something that a lot of women experience. So Morgan, thank you again. I mean, people hear this. You've heard of enabling, right? You've heard of enabling other people and yada, 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 tough love. We know all this stuff. But what I realize is I attract a lot of women who I say are the ambitious go-getters, right? I am an ambitious go-getter. So I attract different versions of myself. Women who want to make a difference in the world. They have this bigger purpose. They have this sense of like more, more, more. They feel a little, like a black sheep. They're like, I need to find my people. But they also, they want to live a different way, but they're exhausted, like physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually exhausted. And they just think if they sleep more, then they will have more energy. Or if you drink more coffee, you're going to have more energy. You may have even gone to your doctor and had all the blood work and everything, and the doctor will say to you, you're fine. Like, medically, there's no reason why you should be this way. So we're just going to label you as chronically fatigued, sucks to be you, good life. And I won't stand for that. Like that, no, not me. Not happening. So this emotional overperforming, oh my Jesus. Guys, you will move mountains, but we are overcompensating for a lot of people. And then when we do not overcompensate for people, you feel guilty because you think you're an asshole for not fixing somebody else's problems or saying, oh, I can do that in 2 seconds, just let me do it. Because what happens is you condition these people around you that so-and-so will solve all my problems, right? We teach people how to treat us. It's the same thing if you have an expectation of every single time, like every single time my mom comes over, X will happen. It's an expectation, whether it's positive or negative, right? Like, oh, I can depend on this person for this, or every single time I call this person, they'll answer the phone, or when I text this person, I know it's going to take them 24 hours to get back to me. We teach people how to treat us. So when we are emotionally overperforming for other people, what we are doing is actually taking away their inability to feel in control of their own emotional well-being. You do this with your children, you do this with your partners, your husbands, your business partners, your employees, your boss, your friends, your family. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. If you are one of those women that feel like you are the glue, right? You are the glue and you hold everything together and you can't get sick. You can't take a break because if you do, everything will fall apart around you. This is a sign that you are an emotional overperformer. And I guarantee you, you are either the oldest in your family or you've had some emotional trauma where your parents were unable to emotionally support you. So you're overcompensating. You're the overachiever. As you know, well, you might not know, I share parts of my story, but part of my story is I grew up divorced parents and it was just me and my mom. And so I was her emotional support. And to this day, I still am her emotional support. She depends on me for a lot. And I grew up like this. I grew up as the fixer. I grew up as the rescuer. And because I did that, I attracted men in my life. Fortunately, not the husband I have now, but I attracted men in my life who I could fix, right? I attracted friends in my life who I could fix. And then in my work, I would attract clients who wanted to be fixed. And realizing now, I understand that I am this emotional overperformer, but where I'm at now in my own personal development is really standing in my own saying, I can coach you. So as a professional, like when I first started my practice, not even when I was a coach online, but when I started my own private practice, it's like you just attract how you've positioned yourself in there. So now I attract a lot of women like me who are the ambitious go-getters who want to figure out how can I start coaching more people in my life rather than doing all the work. And a lot of times that pops up in parenting. Or if you're in a leadership role, that will pop up in your leadership position. So how do you get out of this cycle? Because everyone's always like, yeah, I get it, Heather, thanks for the theory, but how do I change this? And I'm telling you, it's going to be very uncomfortable, especially if you're in a marriage with somebody who doesn't want to take any ownership or responsibility for their emotions. And let's just be honest, growing up as a male, if you are in a male-female partnership, there's many different partnerships, but I'm just focusing on like male-female, but it could be female-female, male-male, whatever. My point is, if you are in a partnership with somebody who has never had the capacity to feel their emotions. They've never been taught to be vulnerable. They've never been put in a position where they needed to take care of certain things. So a lot of women will overly mother their sons. And then it's like they pawn them off to a spouse and say, good luck, right? Like, good luck. He would never do laundry. Well, you did his fucking laundry all the time. How do you expect me to do that for him? And then there's conflict in the marriage because you're like, I'm not your mother, I'm your wife, right? So we have to realize that A lot of times we're not giving people the benefit of the doubt to handle their own emotions. So emotional intelligence is all about your ability to see and navigate your emotional well-being. And I see this a lot with children and parents with children, especially if a child has special needs or special abilities, because the parent has done so much for the child that all of a sudden it's like, well, what do I do if I let go? What do I do if I actually give back my child some of their emotional baggage? Like, they're going to freak out. What do I do if I give back my husband some of like the bullshit that he, puts on my plate? And I always say there's the breakdown before the breakthrough. But imagine having like a teacup and it keeps breaking, and all you keep doing is super gluing that shit back together. And it's your favorite teacup, and you are drinking your coffee or tea or water out of it every single morning. And every time you're like, please don't break, please don't break, please don't break. And you kind of have this anxiety of like, oh my gosh, this is my favorite cup. Like, don't break, don't break. And you're holding it with two hands and you're just like sipping very slowly out of it because this cup is so precious to you, but you keep gluing it back together. You have no confidence in this cup that it's going to hold its shit together. What if the coffee is too warm and the glue melts and it just like pours all down your pants and then you're burnt? What if, right? But this is what happens in people's lives. They get anxious and they're like, why am I so anxious? Why am I having panic attacks on a daily basis? Why do I feel incredibly uncomfortable? Why am I triggered by these certain situations? How come when my husband is out of town, I can hold my shit together and then as soon as he gets back, I lose it? Or why do I hold, the other way around? Why is it great when he's here, but then when he's gone, I lose my mind? Or whatever. You have to observe these inconsistencies in your life and say, why am I depressed? Why am I anxious? And not settle for the fact that you've just been handed a diagnosis. You are not broken. You are not a fucking teacup that needs to be super glued back together. With modern day research and science, you can replicate the exact same fucking antique teacup. If you Googled it, you would probably be able to find a manufacturer somewhere that will make the exact same freaking teacup. To every little chip, to the gold rim around the top. Nobody would know. Looking at it, you're like, that's the exact same thing. But what happens is your emotional attachment to the first teacup. Well, it was my great-great-great-great-grandma's, and that's all she had. You're attached to the story of the teacup. And that's why we don't let go of shit in our life that needs to let go of. That didn't make sense, but you understand what I'm saying. That's why we don't let go of stories, because it is ours. We've owned that story, that teacup. But imagine you were gone. You didn't even know that teacup existed. It was in your china cabinet and somebody broke it. One of your kids broke it and they super glued it back together and you didn't even use it, but you'd walk by it and you'd look at it and you couldn't see the cracks. And then one day you weren't home and that little asshole of a child of yours was playing with a Nerf gun in the living room, knocked it down and shattered all over the place. And you were like, oh shit, right? He's like, oh shit, mom's going to be mad. But he was a wise kid. And he knew exactly where to go to get the exact same replica of the teacup. So he got the same teacup, he put it back up. Would you know? You wouldn't even know that was a different teacup. You wouldn't know. And that story that lives inside of you about great-great-great-great-grandma's teacup, you would project that story onto that teacup. My point is, it's the story. It's the emotional attachment. It is what lies inside your mind. And that is why you are emotionally overperforming for other people. Because if I let my husband take care of the kids for a weekend while I go away, oh my God, everyone's going to die. It's all going to go to shits because he can barely wipe his own ass. Is that really the truth? Or is that just your story? If I go away, I'm going to be an awful mom and I'm causing this traumatic experience for my children and everyone's going to fall apart without me. He's not going to be able to handle it. We're going to get in an argument. Is that true? And so what? Can I be honest? So what? It's not sustainable. This was a very similar story that I had 5 years ago when I got stage 4 cancer. Nobody can watch my children as good as I can. Nobody can feed them as well as I can. Nobody can do everything as well as me. And my marriage was really rocky because of it. Because I was a control freak. Right down to what my husband had to wear. And then when he wore something that I didn't like, I would say negative things to him. How do you think that makes somebody feel? So how do you get out of that cycle? You have to start relinquishing control. You have to identify the stories that you tell yourself about situations and then do the opposite. So for me, I'll write down things that I would never do. Like, oh, I could never go on vacation for a week without my children and leave them at home with XYZ. Oh, I could never do this. Oh, I could never do that. Oh my gosh, that gives me so much anxiety. I could never do this. And I write a list down. And then I start checking them off. And I'm like, okay, what can I do to break this mental pattern? What can I do to break this mental pattern? You have to challenge your beliefs. Oh, I could never spend that much money on myself. That's so selfish. Well, how much money do you spend on your kids? It's not an issue for you to spend $500 on clothes for your kids. How come you would never spend that on yourself? You'll go to Disneyland for your children. You'll spend thousands and thousands of dollars on recreational activities. But no, you would never be able to do a pottery class or spend money on a yoga membership or buy yourself some nice frickin' underwear. Emotional overperforming. Give emotionally. And then you're tapped out. You're angry. You're frustrated. You are the enabler. You are the rescuer. You are the fixer. The opposite is becoming the coach. And I will tell you, there's so much vulnerability in this. I recently had a situation with a friend, and I didn't put my foot down. I just held the boundary with how I wanted to feel in my life, and this person didn't enjoy that. They didn't respect my boundary. There was no yelling. It was just a no thank you. And they wanted me to say, yes, what do you need? I'll do anything for you. But for so many years, that was what this person could expect from me. Yes, what do you need? Yes, what do you need? Yes, what do you need? And it was never a reciprocal thing. I had no expectations from this person. I don't have many expectations of people, and I don't know if that's just from disappointment or if it's a healthy unattachment. I truly do give from no expectation. But when I'm giving, and now I feel depleted and it's not in alignment, and then this person is asking me to give some more, and I say, no, thank you. That's not going to serve me. That's actually not sustainable, and it's detrimental to my health. And the person doesn't see that. They don't respect that. They don't value that. That's when you know you're emotionally overperforming for somebody. And so what I had to do was say, okay, I see you're unhappy with this. I see, you don't want to talk about this civilly. So instead of me typically saying, I'm sorry, and overcompensating because I feel bad for the other person, or I feel like I'm a bad person because I didn't give, I simply just said, thank you for sharing your feelings. And I had to sit with my discomfort that maybe I may never talk to this person again because I held a healthy boundary. It doesn't mean that I'm not open to talking to this person, but when the other party is not able, I'm not saying I'm right. I'm like 100% probably not right. But how do we resolve problems in our life? We communicate. But when the other party is not able to communicate with emotional intelligence and say, okay, we both disagreed on something, let's just talk about it and figure out how we can work this out. When the other person is just chronically persecuting you and saying, you're bad, you're bad, you're bad, you're bad, and you don't even have a voice in that relationship, that's when it's time to leave. That's when it's time to cut the ties and say, okay, we need space. And I did that. And it was really hard and really vulnerable. Because what happens when you are the emotional overperformer in your life, when you're the one that holds the glue together and holds the shit together for everybody else, once you start doing this conscious work and you start cutting these ties with people, you realize, holy fuck, I don't have very many people in my life that I wasn't holding all of their baggage for. And then you get in relationships with people that can hold their own baggage and do their own work, and they're not projecting on you, and you realize, oh, this is easy. This feels good. This feels good. This feels light. That's where you start to regain that energy. That's where you start to regain the energy and go, oh, it wasn't because I was chronically fatigued. I just had a few energy vampires in my life that I needed to create space from. Because guys, for a really long time, and I may have said this to you on the podcast before, but I know I've had these conversations with people. I had to figure this out for myself. Because in the personal development world, what I see is, they'll say energy vampires, cut them out of your life. But always have your door open for when people need you. Where's the alignment in that? It's one thing when the person comes over and says, oh my gosh, I need you. And temporarily that they're, grateful for your help and advice and ear and listening. But then there's that person that just comes to the door every single time, just shitting all over you. And you're like, I can't help this person. They're just so lost. I can't, I'm at the point where I can't give anymore. They're not willing to take responsibility for any of their actions in life. And all of the feedback, all of the, listening and ass kicking I've tried to give them, they're not willing. The greatest gift you can give your child, the greatest gift you can give any friend or adult in your life that you feel you are emotionally overperforming for is the ability to deal with their own big baggage. But you won't like the healthy boundary you need to set in place. You won't enjoy it because the vulnerability that is in place there is your fear. What if they can't handle their own big emotions? I dare you to figure it out. Because instead of two people treading water in the ocean, one with a life raft and the other one swimming to the other person saying, grab on, there's no life raft and you're both drowning. That's what happens when we're emotionally overperforming for other people. It's not sustainable long term. Because you get heavy with other people's baggage, and just because you're holding on to their shit doesn't mean it actually comes off of their shoulders. It's like it multiplies. And as you can see in the world around us, we need more women, more human beings that feel alive, that feel light, that feel good. This is not selfish. The fuller you are, the more complete you feel, the more you can sit with somebody who you've been emotionally overperforming for and say, I see you, I love you, I care about you deeply, but I cannot do this work for you. You have to do it yourself. That takes ovaries. It's a tough one. So I'm learning this right along with you. And I'll tell you, I've come a long way. When every day used to feel really heavy to me, I feel pretty light these days. And sometimes I still catch myself in those spots when I look at every freaking bird and dog and kid that I want to rescue. My husband's like, why? What is your need for this? I'm like, I just want to help. He's like, no, why? And then you complain. I'm like, you're right. I just want to do good in the world. And realizing that sustainable doing good in the world is teaching, not rescuing. Even though I will always rescue something, I don't need to over-rescue, right? We don't need to over-perform. But we can teach other people to feel empowered. We can teach other people to feel alive in their life. I can look at my children and say, oh, I so wish I could take this big emotion away from you right now, but I'm going to let you sit with it. And I'm probably going to go cry in the corner because I can't solve this problem for you. You have to learn and discover to feel this discomfort and solve your own problems. I may have to say that to my parents. I may have to say that to a friend. And someone will have to say that to me when I want other people just to take my discomfort and pain away. I'm like, please, somebody solve this problem for me. And they're like, Heather, I can't. So I've created a little Mom is in Control manifesto, and I'm going to read it to you. Boundaries are healthy and essential to raising emotionally independent children. Self-care is the most unselfish act you can give to the world. There will always be more to do, but it all doesn't have to get done by you. Slow and steady is more sustainable than fast and furious. Your life purpose is to become more of yourself and less of whom everyone else wants you to be. Burnout is a sign to stop, not to keep going. Aim for progress, not perfection. Own your wants, your needs, and desires. Your children are counting on you to feel alive. It only takes 20 seconds of insane courage to change your whole life. Become the person you most desire your children to be. Become the mother you needed as a child. Discover how to mother and love yourself as much as you do your children. Your children are here to teach you something, and your child is here to walk you back home to yourself. So thank you for listening, ladies. In your journal tonight, yes, your journal, pen and paper, as you lock yourself in the bathroom or in the car, you do have time, you do have space, you just have to create it and give yourself permission. Sit with it. Who are you emotionally overperforming for? What are you trying to overcompensate for? What are you overachieving for? Why won't you slow down? Why will you not give yourself permission to feel good? And if you're ready to get out of your own way and you've had enough of your own brand and flavor of bullshit, and you want to be held accountable and to be guided, and for someone to light a fire under your butt, I encourage you, if you are the ambitious go-getter with big dreams, big desires, but you have no idea how to create the space or the time or the energy to make it happen while going after and doing your family stuff and your career stuff, I encourage you to apply for the Mom is in Control Mastery. I want to know what that big vision is that you're going towards. I want to know what you feel is getting in your way, and we'll talk. After you filled out your application, I personally read and respond. And then, we'll set you up with an intro call to see if it's a good fit. Just know what you want, the life you want, so possible for you. So possible. But in order to create it, you, yes, you, and only you, need to get out of your own way and have 20 seconds of insane courage to make magic happen. So if this is you, head on over to momisincontrol.com, fill out the application, and I'll be in touch. Talk soon.